And of course, much as, of course, according to today's new vision, today's Daily Monitor, 6 of the 8 candidates are already struggling with finances for the campaigns, but nevertheless, they will be there. Of course, the 2 candidates say for them all is well. NRM says, for us, we have no issues with finance because our budget is fully financed. And of course, NUP also says our only problem is people blocking our reservations for hotels, but we are not struggling in any way with the finances. So that is it. And of course, very soon we shall have the nominations for the MPs, and of course that is the another highly awaited session. And yeah, the Electoral Commission has already come out. Of course, there was an adjustment. It was supposed to be next week, but there was an adjustment, and so it will be the other week after next week. But nevertheless, we continue, and today we are talking about youth as guardians of peace in the electoral seasons, because we know that these are the mostly used. Everyone wants to leverage on the energy, on the power of the youth, and of course we want to see what their role is and how far they can go, especially when it comes to causing the transformation. And with us is a full team. I'll start with the man next to me, who is Emolot Allan David, and of course he's a district visionary leader with over 9 years of experience in youth empowerment. And so we know we have the right person with us here. David, kindly greet our viewers, and then we shall continue.
Yes, thank you so much for hosting me today. Good morning, viewers. As he has mentioned, my name is Emolot, and the focus today is the young people, and it's never late. You know, we're already into, I think, a few days and weeks into the campaign season, and we are already seeing candidates, as you've mentioned rightly, trying to leverage the power that our young people of Uganda have. So this is the right time to begin talking about the youth and their role in the peaceful elections of our country, because again, they are the center. And it's good that we are building up these discussions into the election year next year, so that at least we see a peaceful country, peaceful elections in general at the end of the day. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. And of course, we have Joanna Nakabiito, who is the manager, Peace, Governance and East African Initiatives at the East African Affairs at the Interreligious Council of Uganda. Joanna, it's a pleasure having you as well.
Thank you. This is my second time here.
Yes.
I hope I will be here more often.
We also wonder where you come and disappear.
I'm here now. We are going to move.
Okay.
Yeah, so of course, thank you so much for having us here on the Uganda We Want, which builds on the legacy of the Interreligious Council of Uganda's Uganda National Dialogue process, which definitely includes the youth. We see youth as very, very, very pertinent in the affairs of democracy, democratic deepening, and also governance. And I think I'm looking forward to speaking a lot about the youth bulge, as well as how that demography is interconnected with the leverage that they have as being guardians of peace, as opposed to being gate-kept by not elders in general, but more older elites who are characterized by, this big manism culture and so on and so forth. So very glad to be here to speak about that.
Thank you so much. And of course, the extreme left is Counsel Henry Kasacaa, who is a lawyer and governance consultant. We last saw him during the Kawempe by-elections. He was the DP flag bearer for that seat.
That's right.
Yes, it's a pleasure having you again with us here.
Thank you very much, and it's also a pleasure being on Family TV this morning. It's my first time here, and I hope that, unlike Joanna, who says it's my second time, I hope to come back. I also have the hope that I will come back here.
Yes.
I'm glad, and good morning, our viewers. We are into a very interesting season, and talking about young people, there has been a tremendous shift in young people now. They have all been exposed to democracy. they are all excited. And elections are a very exciting time. That's why you have the morale, you have the cheers, and people get socialized into politics. So as we go into this discussion to look at whether they can be ambassadors of peace, it's part of the socialization, the political socialization of young people. And hopefully if we have a mindset shift in young people, we can have the democracy we want. Because the Uganda we want will be a democracy. But you can't have democracy without Democrats. And you can't have Democrats unless you build them. Democracy grows, and it's a culture that has to be nurtured. So in this season, I think we can also focus on those elements that will try to help us nurture that Ugandan we want. Because the Uganda we want will be a summation of the Ugandans we have.
Okay.
And I'm very happy to be part of this program this morning.
Actually, at that very point, just to start off with a conversation, in the recent past, there is something that has come up in the political sphere, and this is called the Gali.
Yes.
And I mean, it is so evident these days that almost every politician has a Gali. So if we can reflect on the history, how have the youth been actively involved in the affairs of I mean, the affairs of Uganda, especially in the electoral processes from about 1996, when we started our active elections. I mean, when the Electoral Commission was established and starting its work, up to today, both positively and negatively.
Well, by and large, young people have been involved negatively. And they have also been involved because they have limited expectations. They enter a process, they can be excited easily, and they can be instrumentalized. And much as politics requires numbers, and if the young people are many, whoever controls them can swing them the way they want. And if they are swung in the wrong direction, we can move in a different direction. If you look at our political history, much of the violence we had in the days of UPC, DP, was more or less propagated by young people. When we had violence around religion, violence around tribes, those are all young people. But young people will be told this, you act, you stop this, and they do that. We had violence in UPC. It was young people who liberated this country. 1980 war. We had this concept of the Kadogos. The Kadogos were children, and they went to the bush and they fought and they got guns, and others went back to school. So young people have played certain roles. But this Gali now is not actually new. We have had it, it's just manifesting in a different way. We had the youth brigade. If you remember when we had Haji Sebagara here, we had UID. UID had more of a political socialization process, but at one point it began being instrumentalized. Then we had Haji Sebagara coming with the youth brigade, which was also trying to come up and create a force. And it also comes because politicians feel they lack confidence in the system. That is number one. Those who believe that the system cannot deliver, cannot secure them, they have to provide their own security. But in the process of providing your security, you may be preparing people for violence. And that becomes a culture. And this culture of our Ugandan politics has had more of a confrontational approach. You know, when you see Mugisha Muntu speaking, they say, General, you are so soft. When Dr. Wesley came, people said, yes, this is a soldier, this guy is going to confront them. So people even today have tried to create that face. And you see NUP and all the colors, the attires, they all look like they are foot soldiers, you know. That concept of attacking, of confronting, becomes the orienting factor. Nobody gets into politics. When you are soft, they say, but for you are too soft. I was in Kawempe and people were saying, but Kasacaa, you are a gentleman. This thing requires
you won't survive.
It requires you to behave in a given way. Change your dress code. You see a lawyer putting on an overall.
You have to kuzoganya.
You have to kuzoganya. So this idea of kuzoganya becomes the orienting factor into politics. And when you are kuzoganyaring, the other state prepares for people who want to kuzoganya. So the state will counter-prepare for your preparedness. And that may lead us into a violent situation. And that may see us failing on the democratic achievements we are having. So this concept of a Gali, one, may appear like the system is not working. But we have had other people. Nelson Mandela liberated South Africa without violence. But they went through a lot of violence. But they did not counter-prepare the violence. So when you counter-prepare for violence, where these two forces meet, may not be the Uganda we want. Because when people are so determined that the only way they have is to confront, even the other force will be prepared to resist the confrontation. So at that meeting point, it will be Uganda to lose. So I think this concept of a Gali, I have personally been discouraging it, because I believe that the more you prepare a Gali, the more you lose the values. We have told this government that some of you came through a liberation, and you believe you are the ones who hunted your animal. You are entitled because some of your blood, some people lost blood, others lost their eyes, others lost their limbs. We cannot compensate you. And you have that sense of entitlement all through. After 40 years, there are people who still tell you, you don't know where this country came from. You don't know where we came from. You are talking on air is because of some of us. So please give us credit and respect us. We know what we are doing. Now, even those people who bring, when democracy is brought violently, it can never be sustained democratically. It has to be sustained violently. When you come through a rigging process, you have to maintain the rigging. So if you see that you are doing a Gali to deliver you, you need a Gali to protect you. Yes. And we cannot be in a cycle of a Gali and have a Uganda we want. So I think it's a wrong conceptualization. It is building on that thinking of confrontational politics. People do not want to discuss. They are always issuing ultimatums. They always want to show they have power. And that is where we lose the point. Okay.
Thank you so much, Counsel. Now, you have brought in something about the uniqueness in the youth. Because even now, when we look at the 2024 population census results, they show that they actually dominate the population of Uganda with over 70%. And this means that majority of Ugandans fall into the category. So that means that there is a lot more that the youth can do. But Joanna, if we look at the lessons we can learn from the politics previously and the involvement of the youth, and today, what can we do better that probably is not right currently when we see the evolution of very many things? There was, Council was talking about the brigade, but now we see the foot soldiers. So foot soldier is someone is like, and they're proud foot soldiers, and they are willing to do anything as long as they front the person they want. So what can we do different? What can we learn from probably the stories of the past?
Yeah. Okay. First of all, I think one thing that we need to recognize is that youth are not a monolith. It is something that often, even when we are having discussions under the Julius Nyerere Leadership Center, of which we are actually facilitators in peace and security, it's a very complex demography to conceptualize, because it's not just an age bracket, but then also that uniqueness of youth in terms of their character, in terms of their experiences, with the transformation of technology that is exponentially improving or changing, and so on and so forth. And so there are different opportunities that they use in terms of information being power, but at the same time misinformation being a weapon. So what we need to recognize is that in the past, for instance, there were moments when there were shutdowns of technology. And given that a youth bulge, which is basically where there's the proportion of young people exceeding other age brackets, in a country like this, there is already data and evidence that for as long as there is a youth bulge, especially in concert with, let's say, economic exclusion, usually, there is a higher likelihood of there being violence or risk of violence by perhaps 20 to 30%. So naturally, of course, when it comes to doing good, the majority is going to be youth who are actually within the spaces. When it comes to the wrong, naturally also it's going to be youth who are within those spaces. So it's not just a matter of, oh, youth. Whenever we say youth, we just assume that they are disruptors. But in the past, like I've mentioned, like the technological shutdowns, the limited access to civic education, to opportunities for decision making by the older elites, if I could say that, has been a very big challenge. And so you'll find that these youth, as opposed to the elders who have economic ties, who have families, who have, all these elements that enable them to have stability and therefore a lower likelihood of engaging in direct confrontation or conflict. They make youth unable to engage in dialogue and those spaces, and so they resort to going on the streets, to online trolling, to the extent that now those in power come up with policies where they say, okay, during the elections, now we are going to cut off these information channels. And as much as perhaps I could say, okay, now let the youth try to obtain or come about with some hackathon so that they can have communication channels, still those communication channels might be misused. So I think capacity building is very important. And this capacity building needs to go beyond tokenism. Because you'll find, and even, yes, tokenism in terms of, oh, this is symbolic, let's just gather youth. Let's have a dialogue. But oh my gosh, we need to make sure that at least 20% are youth. It's like, but that is strange because over 70% of the population are youth. So there should be some kind of, relation when you're kind of putting the statistics into place when it comes to decision making and putting people on the table. So I think that is something that we need to consider. The second is ensuring that the youth are being included in spaces of leadership and not just, let's say if you have a capacity building initiative, that you only invite the youth leaders. Because leadership is part of character building. So it's not just about status. But you'll find that in these civic education initiatives, there have been programs, of course, that have been successful, where you'll find that, for instance, we have the Youth Interfaith Network Uganda. And of course, it's our mandate, but I'm just giving an example. They fall under us, and we train faith leaders. But the good thing is that those faith leaders now have their constituents. So they go out into peer-to-peer, which we also have to train them on. But there are some institutions that decide to only get the leaders, like the student guilds, or the members of parliament, or so and so and so and so. And you'll find that sometimes they don't even have the resources. So resources is an issue. We need to figure out ways that they can optimize but still also send out messages, and to make sure that it just doesn't stay within that elitist group of people. I mean, I personally would like to attend trainings and so on, but I'm also highly educated, like, tell me to find someone in my neighborhood who needs this way more than I do and has the influential power. For me, I have technical power. I have expert power. But you'll find that even on my social media, I'm not that active. But I know people who are like border men who have TikTok, and you'll find that they have 219,000 TikTok viewers. I had a podcast, but I wasn't very good in distributing and so on, a peace education podcast. But I would find that, what if I trained someone on the ground on these specific issues, so that they could be able to influence those around them. So if I could talk about the 2016 and 2021 elections, misinformation and even these small squabbles at the polling stations where they were not allowing them to get through, even journalists. If I could talk about the intersectionality, like I said, we are not a monolith. Youth work in the civil society. They work in government. They work as doctors. They work in finance, and so they all have a part to play. But now, for instance, the journalists. majority of them are youth. So it's also difficult to say, oh, police are targeting youth. It could just so happen coincidentally that it happens to be a youth. No one is really taking that down, but you just see someone who looks a certain way. Because I identify with 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, you know, it depends on the experiences. Yes, but you'll find that perhaps maybe within those networks, like the Uganda Media Sector Working Group, they could have a youth network who specifically understand the experiences of the voters, the frustrations they have, and also within the law, try to bring them out and have conversations with different institutions like the police and so on and so forth, who have really been looked at as attacking, you know, not just the electorate, but also those who in electoral monitoring as youth and so on. So I think those are some areas that we could take note of and work on.
Thank you so much, Joanna. Actually, now this now shows us that actually the peace that we want to achieve lies in the hands of the youth, because they're the most violent and they cause the commotion. For instance, at a polling station, when when a police officer tries to do their work, it's these youth who will confront him. By nature bully. that is the statement. But David, looking at all this, how can the youth, because the voice that the youth push out is, we want change. It's our generation. We want to have we want to own the generation. How can the youth own the generation? How can they own the change, or how can they cause the change without being violent?
Thank you. And I think I would want to start with a statement that you say that the youth are violent by nature bully. I don't think the youth are actually violent. What so happens is that is the narrative. One, our security forces try to use to justify violence against the young people who would be peacefully demonstrating, or peacefully, in this case, in this electoral season, escorting their candidate to their campaign venue. So the violence that is being perpetuated, that young people are violent, is mainly just our forces, but also other proponents trying to justify the violent or the aggressive nature to attack the young people in this campaign season. Youth are generally not violent, but youth are, especially in this season, not only in Uganda, but if you look at the East African region, youth are being taken advantage of by mainly those who want power. So they use them, and they're easily manipulated for their gain. You find young people, if spoken to properly, if engaged, positive engagement of young people, they become the fosters of peace. Because they don't have this violent nature, but every person, when provoked, can be violent. Everyone has in us. It's inherent. When you provoke someone, they tend to be violent. But when you use a peaceful process, a peaceful method to engage them, there is no point whatsoever that young people can be violent. And there are many cases. If you see, the day police decides not to engage the young people, especially, and we have seen these instances where police says, okay, today we are not engaging, we are escorting you to the venue, you will not see any violence whatsoever. But the moment police tries to engage, that's when you see the violence. Youth also react to that. But also, there is also one thing that makes youth violent: the politicians themselves. The politicians in Uganda have mastered the art of instigating violence and instigating young people to engage, because they know, if I am arrested, especially the opposition candidates, they have built this narrative that if you have not been arrested before, you are not for the revolution of changing the government. So you will have to fight and cause chaos in whatever way you can to ensure police engages you, police arrests you. But for police to be able to engage you and arrest you, they have to counter the young people. So you see, that is also a tactic that our police forces, our politicians are using. I will not mention the police officer, but in one of my engagements with the security forces, one of the former DPCs confessed and said that actually opposition members were paying me to arrest them so that they can what? They can cause chaos, but also to build sympathy around the electorate. Like, they have arrested our man. No, we should give him a protest vote. So that's why the issue also of protest vote comes from. You cannot have a protest vote if you have not been arrested. So today, if you are contesting, for example, I will just use that. I don't know if that is, I don't want to preempt, but I don't want to mention names here. But for example, if one opposition candidate wants to be the MP, for example, of maybe Kampala, what do? I have to ensure they arrest me first. I will cause a situation that puts me in a point of arresting, so that my people, it builds sympathy. My people see that, our man is for us. You see, they've even arrested him. And yes, so. And how do you do that? You do that by also engaging the young people. Because if you don't engage the young people, there will be no reason for police to come and arrest you. Because they see you are kungering the what? The young people to engage in violence. So we will have to pick the principal who is mobilizing the young people to engage in violence. But the young people are not violent. But the politicians use them as the ends to justify the means. So they means to an end. They means to an end in this regard. So that is what I want to demystify. But I've even lost the point you were asking. But I first wanted to deal with this point because this is the biggest narrative, and it's the biggest cause of also our elder generation staying longer in power because they are worried that the narrative of young people are violent is what makes them to stay. If I give power, what will happen to me? What will happen? But if we are to interest, and I love what His Excellency President Museveni is doing, the issue of intergenerational co-leadership, where you don't look at young people as a threat to your power, but rather bring them closer. Of course, now the issue out there is how close are you bringing them to power? Because do you bring them closer to succeed you, or you're bringing them closer to keep them at bay? The idea is what he's championing is very good, and I see if we interest that, if we see that young people are even with the opposition, if the opposition leaders even keep giving cards to young people, that is a step way forward. It fosters this issue of intergenerational co-leadership, which is the biggest threat. If the older generation begin looking at us as safeguards of their retirement, that is the first step, not as these spoilers of their retirement. People want to antagonize their retirement. If they see us as peace builders, as those who are going to safeguard their retirement, that is the first step into ensuring that this narrative of young people are violent will not happen. So that is the thing, and I'm happy you brought it, because it will always be the case. Even at home, we are parents. Even at home, you see, if you look at your child as violent, that child grows up to be violent. Because you put it in his head that if I come to ask for shoe, maybe dad, my shoe, I need to replace my shoe, and you're always saying, you a spoiler, you're using an aggressive tone towards that child grows knowing that's the tone to be used. Tomorrow when that child grows, if you are to engage him softly, as they say, that Honorable Mugisha Muntu is a soft man. If you engage him, they will not understand that language because you're built in him. And Mr. Kasacaa was saying that the system is creating violent people. They are not violent, but the system is creating violent youth who, when they are to engage in elections, they have to wear overalls, they have to look like they're in a combat zone. But ideally, that's not where the Uganda was. The Uganda of independence, where young people were free to debate in ideology, is not the Uganda now. The Uganda now, people debate with energy. That for you to be elected, you have to debate in energy. But the young people are not that violent. People like Joanna, who are intellectuals, cannot now stand because they be like, no, Joanna, you're soft. We want someone who is going to speak and begins sweating. You hold the mic with... We are not that. Ugandans were very noble people. Ugandan young people were intellectual. They were engaging in debates. Gone are the days. You see, the Honorable Norbert Mao and the likes of between the 80s, the 60s to the 80s, were engaging in intellectual debates. But now, it's Kunga, it's we go, it's, you see, you are rallying people to fight, you are engaging youth, you see even, you want everyone to be a crime preventer. And yet these people inherently, we are crime preventers inherently, but you don't have to put us in a combat zone or in a combat state to be crime preventers, because we all know we want a safe neighborhood. But so that narrative needs to stop. The moment that narrative stops of youth are violent, that is the first step of ensuring we have a peaceful and a secure election. That is the first step to that. And it needs to begin with us, clearing that narrative. It needs to begin with our politicians, using ideology. Share your, I'm happy. You see, NUP has the new Uganda. The NRM has the protecting the gains. And let's engage with the manifestos. That's where we need to go.
FDC has money in the pocket.
Yeah, FDC has money in the pocket. Let's engage with those manifestos. But gone are the days where we used to engage the manifestos. Now we are engaging the youth to engage the police, to engage the security forces. You see, the NRM people are also mobilizing their young people to counter the NUP youth wave. While the NUP are also mobilizing their people to counter the security forces. So we are weaponizing our young people. Young people are not violent. It's just the system, as Mr. Kasacaa says, that is creating the violence. The system is creating the violence. But Ugandans are the most intellectual youth. It has the most intellectual youth. Myself, I'm here. Joanna is here. Kasacaa is there. He will tell you. He was in the university leadership. He will tell you how they used to engage in intellectual debates, which shaped the leaders we see today. The Segonas, the Honorable Mau, the Kasambide, himself, Honorable Kasacaa. They shaped, the intellectual debate shaped them. But I am telling you, if these people are to retire now, and we are to front the young people who are currently, it's going to be chaos.
Yes.
And I don't at times blame His Excellency President Museveni for staying. Because if you look at the young people you want to hand over power, they are violent, and the system is creating that. And our politicians are aiding that violence. Are aiding that. The politician needs to stop aiding that violence. You are weaponizing the young people, forgetting you are growing old, you are retiring. You are forgetting you are retiring, and you will need the very young people to protect your gains. So you see, so at times we tend to blame the ruling government, but the ruling government, at least if you look at the systems, we have patriotism. You look at the system, we are trying to put PDM money in the pockets. They are trying to do every other thing to ensure young people engage in productive activity. But instead, you have another one saying, no, we should repeal this, we should repeal that, which is weaponizing. The more the young people are poor, as Joanna put it, the more they become violent. So you are aiding a system that is making them more violent. So that's what we need to fight. Maybe you could just repeat the point you wanted me to speak on.
Actually, from your submission, you have perfectly answered it. Yes, okay.
I just wanted to add that this coming gen election, and I think that's where we also work as facilitators, we are championing, and we began this, I think, the last 2-3 years, working on peace and security and putting the young people at the center. That these elections, for them to be peaceful and to end without the death that we saw in 2020, November 2020, the death of very many young people. And actually always young people are the casualty, not the old, the young people are the casualty. We need to have everyone on deck. We need to have the opposition leaders on deck. We need to have the ruling government on deck. We need to have everyone, civil society on deck, to work as one. And that's why Julius Nyerere, with the support from Konrad Adenauer, began championing the peace and security as the core. Because we know if these young people are not made aware that your politicians are taking advantage of you, they will not understand. Unfortunately, we have 21st century is having youth who are connected on the digital, but they're not using the digital to their advantage. They're not using it to study. So us going out there, educating them, is the first step of ensuring we are having a peaceful elections for 2026. And that's what we want every other stakeholder to do, to engage in. That these targeted trainings, there may not be as many, but whoever we are impacting, 1 or 2, 3 that Julius Nyerere is impacting, Julius Leadership Center is impacting, is going to trickle down.
Okay.
It's going to trickle down. And the call to action now is to see that everyone engages with us,
Okay.
supports the movement. In your own docket, either civil society or religious institution or whichever, universities. So these discussions need to begin from there. And that is the only, but if not, this narrative, the more we keep championing, is the more we shall move from tear gas to rubber bullets, from rubber bullets to live bullets. Because when you see them coming, you see them as a threat.
Okay.
And we need to stop that.
Thank you so much, David. Counsel.
Yes.
Okay. Your submission.
No, that, you know, young people can be described as highly inflammable. You know, if you have petrol and you have water and you have diesel and you have milk, the way you handle those different products is different.
Yeah.
If you have petrol, you handle with caution. The container has to be sealed. It should not be in the house. It should be outside. It should be in a different container. Now, these are young people. And it would require responsibility on part of everybody leading young people. Because if people are highly inflammable, in riots, there is this concept of mob psychology. You know, when we start, the four of us walking out, we all go peacefully. By the time we reach the stairs, we are 15. By the time we reach Bank of Uganda, we are 30. And mob psychology comes into a point that somebody would commit a crime knowing nobody is going to see them.
Anonymity.
Because if we are so many, I can simply get a stone and throw it at somebody because you not identify who has thrown the stone. So which means that as you are moving this group which is highly inflammable, you must exercise extra caution. Because some of the things they will do may just be because of the mob psychology and because they are young people and they have not been oriented into a particular way. So if people have had this orientation of Chibuli, I don't know whether Chibuli is bullying. Is it from bullying or Chibuli, you know? As in you have this zoganyaring. Now when people get into politics of kuzoganya, when people get involved through kuzoganya, that culture of kuzoganya will go through all the way, and it is going to get into that cycle. And you see, with the violence, we have been tracking the violence in this country. It has changed. The rioters of 2001 are not the rioters of today. In the early 2000s, you just bring one pickup of military police and everybody will run away. Then we had the black mambas coming up. Then people began stoning men. Then we had tear gas moving. This tear gas, these blue trucks have different forms of tear gas. They have hot water, they have tear gas, they have colored water. Because I remember one time in the university we had a riot coming to Kampala and they sprayed colored water on everybody. So they went back and they were arresting people in Makerere. You enter with colored water, they arrest you when you are alone. Because they knew you were part of that group that we So now it has changed. In that time, that truck sprayed colored water on students. When we were all dispersed and people were going back to Makerere individually, there were security men at the various entrance points. So you enter with your colored water, they know you are part of that group and they get you quietly. So it has changed. And today you are having people putting on armored wear. You are having a candidate putting on bulletproof and also elements. You say, I've seen the Lord Mayor, say he's an engineer, yes. But those are all signs that please prepare for a storm anytime. And that is not going to bring a democracy. So I think that the young people with the current youth bulge, you have a very high population of people who have tested democracy. All these people have gone to school and their children are campaigning in P2. They are all aware of this. Secondly, they have tested democracy. There are so many, they have so many problems, they have nothing to lose and they can be easily manipulated. So that is where we need to approach it with the full responsibility. The late Haji Sebagala organized the youth brigade. But at one point he had to he called police to rescue him from the youth brigade. So even this guard you are building today, it can be by December you can call police to secure you from your guard. Because the guard can turn against you and say, why are you blocking us? Now they come for you. So This culture of violence, this culture of confrontation, is something we need to pull out of our democracy, no matter how oppressed you are. The many people who have fought oppression have fought it not by providing the counter force.
But Counsel, is it still possible in the way we look at things and the way, because what happened in 2021, for instance, is not in the presidential campaigns, is not what is happening this year.
Yeah.
And there is always a progress, like you have, and a shift in the way things surface. So is there hope that we shall get back to the original track without any interferences by whatsoever?
Yeah, it is possible.
Define original track.
I mean the track where we want, the Uganda that we imagine have, yes.
What we want.
No, I think it is possible. Even tomorrow, even today, it is possible. Whoever commands people, whoever people respect, tell them this is the way to go. And if they believe in you, they will follow you. And secondly, I think even the state is not sleeping. Much as you see all this youth bulge, if I'm in charge of operations in the Uganda Police Force, the discussions I'm having now with my commanders is different from the discussions people had then, because now we have technology. Police has a press unit now. They never used to record people, but now you find people who appear like the journalists, but they are recording and collecting evidence for police. There are cameras all over the place. They can now detect people who are violent in Kawempe when they are in headquarters, which means the process has started. Now, if it can be contained from spilling over, and this is the responsibility of the state, that it must contain things from spilling over negatively. Secondly, in other words, the state must be present. If there is a guy going through Kampala Road, it should not reach KPC before Uganda Police has known. Because the Ugandans who are using Kampala Road are victims of nothing. If you have seen these Gari boys, I think we saw them sometime before this campaign started, who are robbing everybody, disguising. You put on t-shirts, then you become violent, you begin robbing people, you say Gari Itewa. By the time the police in Wandegea gets to know that there is a problem, then people have lost their property. Now, the state must remain, and its presence and ground must be visible. Nobody can start a Gari at church house and they are not stopped before they reach Bank of Uganda. Otherwise, so the state is now responding through that. Now, the state will have to respond, but secondly, and most importantly, which is the soft power now, the leaders have to reflect on their responsibility in terms of guiding this country. You can lead young people into violent situations. They will be arrested. Some may lose their lives. Others may be maybe they may lose their limbs. But why are you doing this? Julius Nyerere told Tanzanians that if politics is about anything, it should be about protecting life. Even if you are in this election and you realize that somebody is going to lose their life, for you to be declared, please suspend your declaration and save somebody's life. There is no point in you insisting that I must be the declared winner if that declaration is going to cost people their lives. And that is the sense of leadership and responsibility that we call from leaders.
Thank you so much, Counsel. Now there is an issue of social media, and I think this is now another silent challenge. But we are taking a short commercial break. After the break, we are going to see how social media models the youth's influence in our country's politics. Stick with us.
This is Church of Uganda Family TV. Enriching lives. Regulated by the Uganda Communications Commission. This is Church of Uganda Family TV. Enriching lives. Regulated by the Uganda Communications Commission.
Well, we are continuing with the Uganda We Want, and we welcome you to the second hour of this show, and perhaps this is the last hour of the show. So you will also be you can be part of this conversation by sending us a WhatsApp message or commenting on our social medias. That's YouTube, and then Facebook, X, and of course we shall be able to respond to your question here. So you can start now. I believe you're following, and in case you're just joining us for the first time, we are looking at the young people today, and of course their involvement in the politics of our country, Uganda, because we would call them vulnerable because everyone wants to take advantage of them. I think it's because of their despair. It's because of our despair. It's because of our hopelessness at some point that we feel whoever seems to speak hope is the right person we should follow, even when their hope has no direction. But anyway, talking about Joanna, talking about social media, and actually this is where now the other story comes in, that it is majorly the youth that use social media, and when you follow, most of the insults on social media come from the youth. So of course, people have come out to accuse, to tell some candidates. There was a time when there was an outcry of to the NUP president that please talk to your people because they abuse people, they insult people, they insult everyone. And actually another word that comes in, kumuyisa mugali. There is another language that also came up. But you realize that I think these days, before he starts his rally, you see him saying, please be disciplined.
Yes.
Please be disciplined. Yes. We do not want these people to say that, but still, this has not changed. You realize that there are those angry hearts that still feel if so-and-so is speaking, then I should prepare my insults. And when you look at, even as we follow the live chats, you realize that each time you talk about a particular name of a candidate, then they'll kuisa mwegali immediately. And then, so how can the youth use social media? How can social media influence the youth's political engagement, but positively, to achieve positive results?
Okay. Definitely, social media has very many elements to it, and there are various social media platforms that can be used positively. But I want to first begin with when you mentioned, when NUP, Robert Chagulanyi tells his electorate, his potential electorate, like, don't behave this way, don't behave this way. It just doesn't, you just don't change behaviors and attitudes just by speaking, surely. And when you talk about the frustration of these people and that personalization or allegiance and loyalty to an individual by virtue of their identity, perhaps Robert Chagulanyi identifying more with the youth regardless, despite not even being within that category as per the National Youth Council. It means that they are not actually looking at issue-based politics. They are looking at an individual and his personality traits and idiosyncratic behavior. And of course, he also shapes them depending on how he dresses. So the people who are his voters or the people who follow him, or they also dress like him. But at the same time, that frustration comes with social media being a point of access to information, not just national or continental, because at the continental level, we as a country have the same historical and legacy experiences of colonialism and etc. So we are falling very behind in terms of democracy and on the democracy index. But you'll see that they have seen other countries that are functioning better in terms of democratic and nation building as well as consolidation. So they're wondering, how comes we have not had Uganda has never had a peaceful transition. We have never had a peaceful transition of presidency. So it's also creating that agitation whereby they say, you know what, we now just want change regardless. We don't want to listen to manifestos. For us, when we see the color red, when we see so-and-so, he identifies with us, you know, he's a musician. For us, we understand dialogue through music, etc. So that is a very big problem. So the thing with social media, it's a double-edged sword. So you can't speak about the positive without the negative. But I can first speak about the positive side. For instance, at Interreligious Council of Uganda with our youth network, Interfaith Youth Network, they have used the X Spaces, they have used Facebook, they have used YouTube to engage faith leaders as well as, you know, their constituents in, for instance, cross-generational dialogues with the Elders Forum Uganda. I don't know if you've heard of the Elders Forum Uganda before, which is also under the Interreligious Council. Hopefully we will have it autonomous very soon after revitalization. It involves, for instance, Dr. Magichigozi and even Canon Ogola, Justice Ogola, who are supporters of youth. They are allies. And when we speak of youth, just as when we speak of Pan-Africanism or being African, identity is for differentiation. The moment you say youth, the question is, who is the other? Who is the other? And I also said that not all elders who don't fall within that age bracket are against us. There are some who are mentoring us, there are some who are our allies. But we need to actually have a discussion on who is this other. Is it the older elite? You know? So that we can now begin to find out on social media who is it that they are attacking. Because when we say security forces, I don't think that we are necessarily speaking about someone called Alex Mwanguzi, who is within police, and generalizing all security forces as behaving in a certain way. But I believe that sometimes when you say the security forces are attacking us, the truth is that oftentimes we are actually looking at the security forces as being part of the incumbent. So that is the other. They are not looking at you as a personality, as a character, as an individual in police, as a friend, but actually someone who is a belligerent. So, of course, these are the things that we also need to do when we are monitoring. Social media is also very good with monitoring what is happening as an early warning system. For instance, myself, as a youth, depending on who you ask, what the parameters are for youth, below 35, I fall there. But I use technology, for instance, coding in Python and creating dashboards for electoral violence monitoring. And I actually integrate social media using certain tags concerning violence, specific attitudes, specific behavioral traits, so that I can include all those variables and see who is saying what, where, to who, which political party. So I have my dashboard and I scroll through it, updates every single day. And it enables me to identify the emerging security threats and issues that are very important to create dialogues with different institutions that we get together with and then address those issues. So I think perhaps those are some of the things that I can mention.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Still talking about the youth. You, as you were talking, you talked about the online platforms, which are actually very many now. David, when you talk about these online platforms, because today you realize that almost everyone who has a smartphone is a journalist. Yes. So they can easily record that even in an instance of an accident, someone will first record and post before they can save someone. Yeah, so that is the beauty, and there's a lot of misinformation that is out there, but I don't think, for instance, someone who is 50 years old has the time to get their phone and then they record this case. I mean, they record this and then because some of them are even learning to use some of these things, the TikTok, the what. So it is the youth who are so swift at all these things. But what risk do these online platforms form, especially? I mean, the online platforms pose in terms of spreading misinformation and inciting unrest during such a period. For instance, there was a time early, I think either this week or it was this yesterday, no, the other day Monday, when NUP president was in Mitiana, yes. And then as he was going, then before you know, someone was like, President Bamuganyo Gende Mitiana, and it was all over social media, even when it wasn't verified. And it's the same thing that someone was saying. President Mafabi has been blocked from accessing his this district, and you know, it is not verified. Someone has not given fresh to it. They just give you that highlight and they send it. So what risk does this now pose, especially to the users of online platforms?
Yeah, I think social media plays a very critical role, and I'm happy Joanna started with the positive, but the risk is very high, especially now with the urban youth, who are the majority, and the urban youth are the ones who seemingly understand what Kasacaa was saying, that governance, they are the educated. You find most of them are graduates who are unemployed, and and also they're also trying to leverage the internet for a living, because now the internet is what they are using. But for those who are engaging on social media in governance-related activities, it poses really a high risk, and it is sad. It is sad. Although you know, if they were to use it for a positive gain, it would be good. But it's sad. And what we need to do, and I think this is what I'm happy that Comrade Kasacaa was also mentioning, is there needs to be a mechanism of countering misinformation and disinformation. There needs to be a system within, not only, even actually, it can actually also be another campaign strategy. Within now the ruling government should also deploy within the convoys of the opposition to actually be able to counter, because if these chaps from text and be like, President, they have blocked him from entering Mitiana, it becomes an uproar. You see what happened in Eastern Uganda in 2020, November? Luka. It was just an issue of, and you actually said that they are blocked, but there was also disinformation saying 3 have been knocked dead. And it was already spreading, and it was already causing panic. So there needs to be a counter mechanism, and this is something that our security forces are slow at adapting. We need to 2020 as a build up to 2020 elections should have taught us that social media is being used. The idea of blocking, I don't support blocking social media during the election period. If you are not blocking it now, then don't block it during that day. But what you need to do, I thought they would have learned to actually be able to deploy or even find a mechanism of countering by ensuring that you also have your reporters on ground. As now we see also, as the Honorable Kasacaa was saying, that police also has press. Police should ensure that in their deployment, they're deploying press who are countering. So that as they posts, where do we run? We run to the social media, either X of either Kampala Metropolitan or Uganda Police, to see is it true, because they are also on ground. So that would be the only way we can be able to counter this. Because if we don't do, if that is not checked, it is going to be a quick spiral, a very quick spiral that will lead us to the many lives that we lost in 2020, build up in November 2020. So that is one, and again, it's because right now, the internet user statistics have increased. We now have very many smartphones in the hands of very many young people. So we need to teach them what is the active citizen journalism. What does that mean? And you who has a smartphone, how best can you use your smartphone to spread good information that is going to ensure that we don't get to where these people want us to go in a situation of chaos, a situation where we will not come back. It's irreversible. And the best example is the Gen Z protests in Kenya. You saw how they even went to the parliament, and how was it coordinated? Online, social media, and the country was almost being banned. Right now, as we speak, Madagascan young people the government was dissolved. Now we have a prime minister who is an army general in Madagascar right now. But all of that is being perpetuated by the social media. In Nepal, as we speak, the young people themselves use social media to vote for their current prime minister. So, but if we don't learn, if our government, if our security forces don't put a mechanism of countering this in real time, not waiting later on in the evening to issue a statement, we need in real time. You also have live videos in real time, because the Mook people, the Mook brigade, live streams. They do live streaming. If their president jumps on a border, they are still live streaming on a border. And the government has those resources. Uganda police force budget can actually accommodate live streaming. So we need to have a mechanism. But if not, the risk is very high. The risk is very high. And unfortunately, it's within the central, the political capital of the country. Central is the political capital of the country. And if unrest begins here, it will be quick to crop in other cities. So that's what we need to do. And also, maybe lastly, as I conclude on this point, is that this citizen journalism is a very good concept. And we have seen it work for those candidates who use it rightly. Protecting your vote. You have voted, DR forms, take a picture, send to your tele center. We see if it's used rightly, it can actually ensure we are having a peaceful election. But the risk of it being manipulated is very high, because no one controls it. And that's why government decides to shut it down, because that is the only way of ensuring this information they are saying that they have killed Abata Novafude doesn't go beyond the 10,000 who have seen them. So government is forced to shut. But we need to educate our people to best use their data, to best use their phones, and we see that positive citizen journalism should be at the forefront of every campaign season. And unfortunately, if you look at all the campaigns that even UCC is running, it's not focusing on this aspect of citizen journalism. We need to draw attention to that and begin running these ads in the Bukede, in Family TV, in all these other TVs to see that it sinks in that you as a person with a phone, you have the power to share the right information, to prevent someone from dying, to prevent someone from going to the streets, to engage on what is even not there. People have not died, but you are the one saying, you are going to get pics of 2020 elections, you're posting them now, and you're hyping the population, you're hyping the young people, and that's why you be like the young people are violent, but it's you who is misusing this. And I am telling you, there are people who have headquarters, they have spaces, rooms where they manipulate algorithm to populate this. This is targeted. This social media disinformation is a targeted strategy. Also by, I definitely believe also by the opposition, because in 2020 general elections, the biggest number, and even why the Facebook was shut, was also because of that. People are having rooms where they have recruited very many young people to focus on getting clips that are not even for Uganda Times, and begin spreading like it's happening today. And through that, that's when you know these things are happening. And that's what we need to do. We need to be very intentional at ensuring that we use our gadgets. And this is an appeal also to the young people out there, that your phone should be an instrument for peace, not an instrument to weaponize the young people, not an instrument for violence. Your phone should be an instrument for peace. Share information that is right, and don't manipulate whatever you have seen. And you saw, and I'm happy, and I'm happy that during the NRM elections, SEC elections, we saw the use of phones for the right reasons. When number 1 turned to 100, it was captured there, and that was positive. And you saw it was checked. The youth, the National Youth NRM Youth League elections, eventually through the social media, it was called off, and now another election was organized. So there is power in the usage of phone, but there is also high risk of being misused. And again, by the same politicians who have mastered the art of steering the young people through this small information. And lastly, very lastly, I'm not going to add on again, I gave the Gen Zs, but we also saw the positive use of this phone during, if you may have followed up, the NSAS movement in Nigeria, when the young people in Nigeria were advocating against police brutality. Social media became the key, the weapon of fighting the police. The young people didn't go holding stones and hurling at, no, they used their phones. They had evidence, and you cannot dispute the evidence. And that evidence was used, and the police chief was dissolved. The whole police cabinet was dissolved. And that's how
police brutality ended, because again in Nigeria it became an issue of if you're holding an iPhone, you're a Yahoo boy, which wasn't the case. Not every person who is holding an iPhone is engaging in internet fraud. But that targeted engagement helped the young people to end police brutality. In Kenya, that targeted engagement on social media made sure that the whole His Excellency President William Ruto came to a Twitter space and X space to listen to them. But unfortunately, the young people also didn't take advantage of summoning the president to a Twitter space to advocate, and the cabinet was resolved. But because the young people didn't have, and maybe we shall speak about it later on, only how can young people leverage social media for their own good? If you through social media you have managed to bring the government to its knees. Why don't you use social media to even nominate cabinet ministers and be like, so and so should be our youth, our cabinet minister or our cabinet minister for youth? So our young people have the power within their palms, but we are not taking advantage of it. But who is taking advantage instead? The politicians who know the power of social media and are using it to stir violence. But in this 2026 general elections, upcoming elections, it should be the young people who should be at the forefront of using their gadgets to promote peace other than using their gadgets for violence. And that's how even Julius Nyerere, I believe they are working on something to youth peace ambassadors who are going to engage on social media, these digital engagements to promote peace, promote information, the right information, instead of disinformation and misinformation that we see in the media. So that should be the goal. And our police force should also employ the young people. The very young people they are fighting should be employed. UCC should also employ the young people to see that they be at the forefront of countering this disinformation, putting also centers to counter this disinformation. Yeah, so I think that's what I should say in that point.
Okay, actually, when you talked about how the youths can use the digital tools or the social media to promote peace and civic education. Of course, we know there is civic education in Uganda here, but we might say that it is not extensive as expected. But Counsel, if we can pick it up from there, how can we, first of all, because we know there is a category of youth that do not sit on mainstream media to watch, that even when you watch social media, you realize that the engagement majorly is from a particular category of people. But how can we now use these digital tools to at least promote peace and civic education among the youth?
Yeah, you see, it's a very complex, and it's part of building the culture of democracy, to have social media be a facilitator or an instrument or a medium through which we can participate, we can make our voices heard, but also contribute positively. And that cannot happen unless you have that culture. Now, on the culture part of it, in this country, people have a very high tendency of spreading bad news. They hardly spread good news. Whoever you see posting something, it says an accident, there is blood, there is a dead body. I mean, it has been raining in Kampala. But how many people have posted this harm thing to show the whole Kampala is flooded? People in Nakasero don't know that it has flooded, but all over the place. So people have a tendency. Even when there is an accident, people need to be rescued. Others are busy recording to post. Before saving somebody's life, you are recording. So that culture,
in a selfie mode to as proof that I was there. I'm here, as you can see. The
people are dying. People, these ones need help. But why don't you help them?
Like Bitcoin.
Exactly. So you find that culture part of it is something that is within people's minds, which we have to change. You know, one time on BBC they did a survey. They dropped about 100 wallets in London. Each wallet had 10 pounds. And they dropped it when there was bad news, and they also dropped it when there was good news. For example, the British team has won, and the researchers went and dropped 100 wallets with a contact in case if found, please return. So many of them, the majority were returned on the day when there was good news. And on the day when there was bad news, nobody returned any wallet. Because when Uganda Cranes has won, we are all celebrating. I pick a wallet, he has, please contact in case I have airtime. I will call and say, you have lost your wallet. Please come to reception at Family TV. Now, in Uganda, you don't know whether there is a time when people can spread any good news. That is number one. Number two comes into regulation. Laws are designed based on the context and the circumstances. And if your context is different, if people have a different mindset, the law may be different. The one in Uganda may not work in Kenya if you are to contain and maintain the stability of the state. So you find a restriction here. We have seen social media in Nairobi, in Nepal. Governments are falling. There are people who believe that even in Uganda, a government can fall through social media. And they wake up every day and they say, how can we how do we move people to, you know? And the others here who are saying that government failed because they overlooked this important issue. So we cannot wait for it to happen. So we are now at a crossroads. The way this social media is going to work, and if we do not use it well, we must find ways of regulating how we use it. Unfortunately, when we are discussing some of these democratic rights, we sometimes think they are absolute. That if the right to post is enjoyed in Kenya and Nepal and London, it will be the same right in Uganda, where the people's mindset is totally different. So we find that we may now need to have a national discussion on regulating how people are using this space. It can be used positively, but it can also be used negatively. I want to remind you that the day, there was a time Dr. Besigye was arrested. I think that's when he was flown to Kenya for treatment. When he was sprayed. I was in a meeting in Hotel Africana, and the meeting about it, when people began getting information, this is how Besigye is. Some people could even say he's dead. Just like you said, they are saying 10 people are dead. When 10 people are dead, people get mad on the street. They just run away. We did a study, you remember when they closed the CBS? There were particular songs that were being played and people got concerned that these songs, by the end of this song, people are just going to put down their tools and walk to the streets. So you find that the way we are using these platforms, even families, many of us are in families that are on WhatsApp platforms, but people are not talking anymore because of the WhatsApp platform of the family. All these political parties are fighting in WhatsApp. In NUP, in FDC, in UPC, in DP. The war that starts on the WhatsApp is too much than you know. In DP, I can tell you, people are fighting over WhatsApp messages. In FDC, it is happening. In family groups, it is happening. Because somebody posts this, and then you say, have you heard what so and so has posted? Why do they? So it becomes a difficult tool. You form a family group on WhatsApp to unite the family. Then eventually it begins confusing the family. Eventually you cannot even have a physical meeting because people have insulted each other. So now this happens on social media. Now how do we use it for peace? Those who believe social media can play a role in peace should demonstrate and lead the way. Nobody should stop us who believe it can play a good role from using it. The late Segirinya became so popular because of Mr. Update. He was just going there, I'm saying I'm coming with an update. And the update I'm giving you is that I'm bringing another update. So you find that man is updating you about the next update. And because he was posting all over the place, he became Mr. Update. But he said Kirinya is the only Ugandan, I think, who used the social media to even profile himself. The rest, we want to use it, but reluctantly. Others who want to use it will have all these teams where you are going to manipulate photos from Cameroon, from Ivory Coast, from where, and AI. Now we haven't had the AI is making people talk certain things. And people look at it and others need to be protected. So the users of social media, There are some who are innocent and they require protection. Because people who don't know AI cannot be convinced that I have not seen President Museveni say, I saw it on my phone. The man has said, this one, I'm not lying to you, but it is a manipulation. Now that can cause a lot of instability in the country. So we need to look at it comprehensively. One, our culture as a people. Number two, our intentions as leaders. Number three, we may need to review the regulation. Banning it is not simply regulating, though it can also be a part of regulation. But if we realize that the nature of our society, laws are made depending on the context. Some of this space may be closed because of the context.
There are too many laws.
And if we are closing space because of the context, it is not the intention of closing space, but the intention is like going to a theater and they make you sleep for the operation. So that at the end of the operation, you can come back and they have operated your body. So in some of these cases, unfortunately, we may need to sleep over certain things to build that national consensus. If we realize that we have no consensus on using social media, we may make that an issue and an agenda item, and that will guide how we move forward. But all this will require people who think about the Uganda of tomorrow, people who are not manipulating people who are concerned about democracy, and people who are responsible. Leadership requires responsibility. Leadership requires courage. When people do not have courage to speak about certain things, then they are not worth being leaders. And if appearing that you are conceding on certain things, that doesn't make you a weak person. It just makes you strong and a responsible leader. So I think we need to enhance campaigns on social media aimed at promoting peaceful elections. Let us have at least a competing narrative. Right now, I think we have not yet, those who want to use social media for peace have not yet either got support or they have not yet taken off the ground. You hardly get messages of peace via social media.
Exactly.
Yet so many people are on WhatsApp platforms.
Yeah.
I mean, even if we recorded 20-second messages by all leaders across the country, these messages will be on every village. And this can start. So I think that is the way we can push this forward.
Thank you so much, Counsel. We are taking another short commercial break. When we return, we shall now come with the last part of this show. Stick with us.
This is Church of Uganda Family TV. Enriching lives. Regulated by the Uganda Communications Commission. This is Church of Uganda Family TV. Enriching lives. Regulated by the Uganda Communications Commission.
Welcome back, and of course this is our last part of today's show, but before we get into the comments that have come through, Joanna, we look at now the current situation and the current approach of civic education that we have in Uganda. What do you think should be the reforms or initiatives needed to better equip the youth, the Ugandan youth, with knowledge about their rights and responsibilities and using them rightly? Okay.
So we actually, as Interreligious Council of Uganda, we work very closely with the Uganda Human Rights Commission. And the Uganda Human Rights Commission is responsible under the Constitution for civic education. But at this point, there are no specific procedures as to which institutions can actually get into civic education. Now, at Interreligious Council, we have a civic education and voter mobilization handbook that was developed with the support of the United Nations Development Program in 2015 and was distributed. So our Department of Peace and Governance has reoriented it for this 2026 election, and it specializes on how religious leaders can engage their constituents in both civic and voter education mobilization. So the reason why we are doing that and not just directly sending it out to young people randomly is because of the likelihood of possibly misinterpreting or failing to have avenues where they can ask questions on areas where there is no clarification. So when we send it out to the faith leaders, who also have a direct line with the National Council of Presidents as well as the interreligious platform itself, will enable them to better distribute that information, which is having clear guidelines, also with approval from the Electoral Commission. But this is different. Civic and voter education is different because voter education credentials are obtained from the Electoral Commission, and voter education is also very important, not only just civic education. So in terms of making sure that they get this information, resources are scarce now. For institutions like, here's a whole organization, also Interreligious Council of Uganda, resources have been cut down because of, lower official development aid, such as USAID, etc. But we have now created this handbook to be digitalized. And also having specific sections such as the role of youth, the role of women, also the role of elders, in terms of creating peaceful electoral processes, including various peace-building mechanisms within the civic education handbook, not just only political-oriented information, but issues concern mechanisms such as mediation, dialogue, and also other avenues and links which will be within that e-digital handbook, so that they can press and see what they can do to promote peace within their communities during times of tension. In terms of using civic education right, I think, like he mentioned, responsibility. And also having that knowledge of the Constitution, that anybody who is at the age of 18 and above, there is no discrimination as long as you're voting age. You also need to be aware through that civic education of where you can obtain certain information, what referral systems are available if you feel that, okay, you're being oppressed, where can I go? So all different organizations have perhaps their own format of distributing such civic education. I cannot speak for them, I can only speak for Interreligious Council of Uganda. So I cannot even say approaches on this. All I can say is what is in the Constitution, where you can obtain this information, where you can get credentials, and also which institutions you can look for. Now, like even when you're talking about social media, and then you say, this thing went viral. Like really, we are the most, as I don't know if it's Plato or Socrates who said, human beings are the most rational beings. And nowadays, even you can look for a social media channel. NTV is where I get my news from. As long as there is citizen journalism, right? But me, I prefer to go to the institution that has those credentials, that verification, where you get that information. You need to be able to identify propaganda. And also civic education, you might find that there are handbooks that might not be having up-to-date information as per the law and etc. So I think organizations need to put out more advertisements, also collaborate with other organizations so that if there is an issue concerning resources and distribution of this civic education information, they can work together to reach a wider audience instead of duplicating such information, and this information is all over the place. It says this. You might find one saying a voter is ages 18-30, another one 18-30, this 30, as per youth, I mean. Because that the National Youth Council is the one that nominates, I'm not sure if it's still the one that nominates the representatives, right?
Yes.
The youth representatives. So in terms of like the young people knowing, okay, we want to go and stand to vie for this specific electoral position, they need to have that information and it needs to be up to date. Okay. So yeah, those are some of the things I think. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And of course, lastly, David, how can political parties and government institutions create space for meaningful youth inclusion?
Yeah, and I think that's a good one. And I think this is what the UN has been able to do over time. UN has institutionalized meaningful youth participation through youth advisory councils. So now every UN body is mandated to have a youth advisory council. Be it UNEP, be it whichever entity, UNDP, they have a youth advisory council. But also within the program, especially for the young women, UNDP itself has the Young Women Fellowship, where they take in interns for apprenticeship program for about 2 years, and they treat them as workers, as a meaningful way. So in Uganda, that is something that is yet to be adopted, and it has we have only been able to see it from the State House perspective. His Excellency President Museveni has been intentional at engaging young people and engaging young people for his causes. For example, he has presidential youth advisors. Beyond having these other advisors that we all know, he also has presidential youth advisors. But you can also see the intentionality within the system, where they also have the youth league, and they have the National Youth Council is the government structure. But within political party, we have the youth league. The Loop Youth League is also there, I believe. I think also DP has had one of the strongest youth leagues. I don't know, they call it UID. Yes, UID has been one of the strongest and just been churning out very good politicians. It has been NRM has not yet, yes, it has, but if you look at UID, the leaders that have been able to churn are very prominent leaders of the country. So the goal is to see that political parties in this case should be intentional at investing more money into capacitating their young people through these youth leagues. Invest in them. I see Loop has a school of governance. Of course, NRM also has its own dialogue. I see young people are being intentional, taking them to Changwanzi for these refresher courses. That is intentional. And the more we become intentional at mainstreaming meaningful youth participation, the more we open doors for youth entry into governance. And the more we will have more young people who are educated into the system. And why I intentionally say educated and is because currently this parliament, the population of those under the age of 35 is actually more. But it's unfortunate that with even a parliament that has more young people in, you see progressive youth policies are not moving. Even them being tabled to parliament and them being had and even passed, there is slow progress. Just recently, and I thank Honorable Okot, that the Startup Act actually passed, which also within it, through that targeted advocacy, we saw the president saying that we are giving 30% and also giving tax holidays for young people, for young investors in the country, which was a good push, but it took long, and yet we have a parliament, the majority are young people. So if our institutions have youth advisory councils, mainstream youth participation, we are going to have a crop of young leaders who are knowledgeable, who are intellectuals. The experts like Joanna shouldn't fear to join governance because the system has been created that transitions young people from volunteer to apprenticeship to mainstreaming them to staff level and eventually taking over the leadership. Okay. That should be evolving, and that's what we should be able to interest. But for government of course, at governmental level, there is already that is happening. You see government being intentional at national youth MPs,
that we see. You see government being intentional at also appointment at governmental level, cabinet level, executive level appointments. At the legislative level, you now go to parliament, you see different departments of parliament, you see young people in. You see parliament being open at internships. And you see also other different institutions of government being open at internships, but we are also now encouraging them to include apprenticeships because of the low level, the low levels of job creation. We are also interested in government to see that they open up apprenticeship programs to ensure that by the time opportunity arises, this young person has experience. You see, we need experience, but there are no jobs to give young people experience. We are encouraging institutions to open those apprenticeship programs for them. And with that, you are capacitating these young people from being dormant, but rather being active citizens and contributing meaningfully. Even if you're paying them stipends, either transport, refund and whatnot, but you're impacting them and you're giving them experience. Then lastly on this, on this is the issue to do with, and I mentioned it about the transition. The government, just like the way we did for women, affirmative action, that women have points to, get to university, women have points into, and different other sectors. There should also be a targeted engagement that looks at young people's, when a person is qualified, don't ask for 10, 15 years experience for a person to help. And I know, unfortunately, those who went ahead of us, spoiled. Jamwa was one of the NSSF executive, was one of the youngest CEOs, not only in East Africa, but Africa. By the age of 27, he became, I think, the CEO, the ED of NSSF, I think either 27 or 30. He was the youngest, one of the youngest people. But because he messed up the system, it removed the belief from the appointing authority that young people can actually do it. So we are also encouraging those who have had an opportunity to go ahead of us. Please do it right. You see, and I'm glad that Honorable Nyamtoro has shown us that as the National Female Youth MP, she was she did well to be appointed into cabinet. So if Nyamtoro has done it, we can also, those who are also there can also do it, so that we get a greener pastures already being, not again salt water and not again making it an advocacy point. But that's what I'm interested in government, that when these cut-off points should be low, especially when a young person is qualified. Yes, now young people can have the PhD by 30. It's very possible. Many young people are now having PhDs by 30. If someone is qualified, why can they be a KCCA director? Because why is it important? It's because they know the interests of young people in this 21st century. They are the right people to address these issues. Even when it comes to issues of governance, I look forward to a Uganda where the Electoral Commission chairperson is a person under the age of 35 who understands what are the triggers young people, what are these things that trigger young people into engaging in violence. So when you have such person at the helm of that institution, their budgets will be youth-focused budgets. Because as Joanna mentioned, and as we all know, they are the majority. So the more we have them in leadership and these governance positions, the better. But it starts by advisory positions, give them advisory positions, be open to apprenticeship programs, be open to lowering the quota or the requirements of them heading these institutions, and letting them, and don't use them as puppets. Let them be there and let them be able to make just decisions. We see New Zealand has the youngest the Prime Minister of New Zealand, a young woman who is doing amazing, very amazing. The country is progressing. And you saw how COVID, and lastly, you saw in COVID-19, they showed that countries that had women at the helm of the leadership, in Uganda we had the Prime Minister who was female. In New Zealand there was a woman. But male-headed governments, you saw they were struggling to manage the COVID crisis. But female-headed governments, you saw they were managing very well. Those statistics were out there. And it showed not only women, but young women, mainstream young women, you see. And that's what we need to do. And that's how we shall progress. That's how these issues of electoral violence will be mitigated, because you have a young person at the helm of the Electoral Commission. You have a young person holding a party ticket, who knows the young people's interests, not only appointing you say you have young people in the process. Yes.
Thank you so much, David. I will go through a few comments here, and then we shall wind up. Thank you so much for the show. It is true that young people can either make the government stronger, or it is the young people who can make the country, I think this person wants to say, unstable. Thank you so much for the show. Okay. Thank you so much for this time around talking about the young people. But you should also not forget that this is the generation, and so let things be the way they should. We can no longer get back to the age of the Kadogos, and the only way we can do our thing is by doing what we are doing now. The Kadogos had their time and they had the guns. So for them, they had an opportunity to use the guns. We do not have the guns. We have our mouth. We have our data. Okay. Thank you so much for the show. Thank you so much. Okay. Well, in my own view, I believe young people also respect people who are soft-spoken. However, it depends on the way you deliberate issues concerning the young people, because most of these people do not front the young people. They only front other things that young people don't even understand. Thank you so much for the show. Thank you so much. Counsel Mutubu is he coming back to Muzoga Nyenate?
I'm back. I'm back. And those who want to Zoganya, we shall Zoganya.
Okay. Counsel, in a minute, kindly give us your closing remarks.
No, my closing remarks is that whatever we have been talking about requires funding. And some years back, I brought a proposal. I went took it to the Prime Minister, and I want to bring this proposal back, that government of Uganda should fund democracy work in this country. There is no need of Uganda depending on USAID, on DJF, on Sijui who, and things that Interreligious Council can do cannot be done because the donors have gone away. Just the other week, political parties shared 11 billion, and they're going to share more money. And I would want to ask members in this space, including Interreligious Council, we need to petition Parliament to create a democracy fund where the work of Interreligious Council can be funded by this government. In Germany, all these foundations are sponsored by their own governments. So all the things we are talking about, reorienting people and building a culture of peace, cannot depend on donors. If political parties can share 44 billion, why can civil society organizations share at least 20 billion to do democracy work? So I think we need a decision. And I want to ask people in Parliament, I want to ask Interreligious Council if you can actually lead this process. And we go to government and you say democracy work must be funded. It can also be funded by taxpayers' money. Allocate money, let us create an office that will give the grants to Ugandan organizations promoting democracy. Otherwise, we cannot keep depending on donors who, after they've got a new president, he changes priority and we are all in the space. So all the things that we are talking about now, yes, the Uganda Human Rights Commission is mandated to do that, but they can be supported by civil society groups. We can all support them if we only got small grants from the government of Uganda. So I think part of the process that we need, and this can be done, is to push government, lobby Parliament, lobby the president, use our good offices to say we cannot have organizations like Interreligious Council grounded because of resources, when what they are doing is contributing to the overall peace architecture of this country. So if we need a law that is going to provide for this money, we can propose the law. It can be passed when the Honorable Anita Among is still in Parliament, and we can have an allocation in the next budget to ensure that we can support democracy work through our own efforts. Democracy in Uganda will not be built by foreigners. It will be built by us. And we shall build it not by sacrificing our bodies, but also contributing resources. it is possible because now everybody sees that parties are sharing money.
Yeah.
What they are using that money for, nobody is asking. Why don't you give other people money to contribute to democracy? That is my parting shot.
Thank you so much, Counsel. Joanna, your closing remarks.
Yeah, something brief for me. I think the youth need to have more collaboration amongst each other and focus more on issue-based interrogation of manifestos as opposed to lingering on identities and personalities. Because the moment you linger, like a person who loves La Liga and is lingering on Real Madrid, you know, for them it's absolute. Regardless of whether there are changes here, as long as they see that color, they are like, you know what, that's what I'm going for. So I think that dialogues should really be centered around those thematic areas that are crucial and have implications on their well-being, on the well-being of their families, as well as on their futures.
Okay.
Because I think from that moment where you now start lowering issues concerning allegiance and loyalty and focusing more on competency, it's going to grow the institutions and also enable those institutions to now start removing that big manism culture and bringing in these young people who are at that intersectionality of, we have a presence in society, but we also have a presence with the state. So it means that they can now have conversations as well as create mitigation strategies for complex phenomena and so on, because they are in those spaces together. So I think pluralism is one thing. I think the other is on still collaboration is, for instance, interfaith collaboration. I'm speaking as, of course, Interreligious Council of Uganda, where we have all the different faiths, at least mainstream faiths, working together. And this is, by virtue of us being interreligious, it eliminates that identity politics of, you know what, you need to vote for so-and-so because he's Catholic, or vote for so-and-so because of this. Yeah, and lastly, I guess, please find out information. Please find more information. And also this goes to institutions when it comes to civic education and voter education. For instance, the Electoral Commission gives out credentials for youth electoral monitoring and electoral monitoring in general.
Okay.
So please find information on that. There is more than just social media. There's monitoring, there's verification, there's a lot of work to do, early warning. So you can even contact Interreligious Council of Uganda, contact the different institutions that they both work for, and get this information. We are here to give you said information. So
thank you so much, Joanna. And then, of course, David, your closing remarks. We have about a minute to leave this place.
Yes, no, mine is simple. Is young people, you are the architects of peace. You are at the center of ensuring we are having a peaceful elections, 2026 peaceful elections. So mine is a call to action that in whatever you do, whether you are engaging on phone, whether you are communicating with your neighbor or friend, this peace, you are at the center of it. You are the reason as to why we will have a peaceful 2026 election. So it's upon you. Know what you're saying, how you're saying it, encourage your neighbors, encourage your friends. Yes, the voting is open. If you are in the voters register, please go and vote and exercise your right. Show your grievance by voting the right candidate of your choice. But we are discouraging you from engaging in violence. You will lose your life, you will lose your property. It may not even be your property, because you may say, me, I am a young person, I don't even have a business in this city. Why should I worry? But the business you want to destroy, the business you want to loot, is also feeding some other person's family, is also employing some other person's family. So you are at the center of a peaceful election, 2026 peaceful election. So may I call upon you to be vigilant. I call upon you to associate with the Julius Nyerere Leadership Center programs and engage with also the Interreligious Council programs. And also, Counsel Kasacaa is also here. We will always, he's on social media. Also, follow. If you don't have a right place to do, follow these social media handles, including Family TV in the process. So that's what I want to say. But again, you are at the center of peace, and please,
championed peace because you are an advocate for peace.
Thank you so much, Counsel Henry. Thank you so much, Joanna. Thank you so much, David, and of course to you, our viewer. Now, today we shall be having the ballot later on in the night from 9 to 11 p.m. Therefore, that means that we shall not have family hour. And of course, from now, from today until the end of the electoral season, family hour shall be replaced by the ballot 2026. Of course, it's starting today, and ensure to come through with Richard Baguma. But of course, from the entire team that we have worked with, wish you a happy Independence Day.